Our first story now, and at least one person has been killed after a policeman drove into bystanders at Atiko Junction near Kanishi. The policeman, who was driving a Toyota Vitz vehicle, is said to have been pursuing an errant trotro driver when he tripped over a mound and veered onto the pavement, ramming into the people. Joy News is learning that the body of one of the victims, identified only as Abna, was completely decapitated. Manuel Kranting of our security desk has been on the ground following this story for us. He will join me with more later. When we do get interactive with him, we'll find out what exactly has been happening since this very sad incident took place. But let's move on and interact. Let's move on and talk about the vaccine mandate. And our laws on vaccine mandates are clear. Those are the words of Dr. Kwame Sapong-Esiedu, a research fellow with CDD Ghana, who is questioning the basis of a petition by the concerned Ghanaian doctors for government to rescind its decision on the mandatory COVID-19 vaccination. Dr. Sapong is casting doubts on the biomedical scientific basis for the said petition. He and the Bono East Regional Director of Health Services, Dr. Fred Adomako-Boateng, are, however, urging government to stick to the existing vaccine mandate under the Public Health Act. They spoke to me on the AM show.
Significant issues with the petition because the Public Health Act has been law in this country since 2012. In that, from clause 20 to 26 talks about vaccine mandates. I am wondering whether you petition the executive without Parliament to set aside our laws, or you are petitioning the president not to implement our laws because they are clear. If we want the law to be amended, let's go through the amendment process. Don't let us petition the president. I don't even think, I'm not a lawyer, but I doubt the vehicle you're using in our democratic dispensation is the right vehicle. That for me is another issue.
So they may not even be employing the right mechanisms in terms of getting what they want. Right.
Exactly. And then finally, they are talking about a state in the US where vaccination levels are, where vaccination levels are very high. If you have a population of 100 and 70 are vaccinated, but the herd immunity threshold is, say, 89, because there can be transmission, by and large, the people who get infected will be in the vaccinated population. That doesn't mean vaccines are not working. These are biomedical statistics that we actually look into every single day as part of my day job. So when I see things like this, I really, really struggle. I wish I could deal with this on merit. I don't think we have the time. But I'm really struggling with this petition on a number of key biomedical science points.
So in essence, Kwame, for the sake of time, you subscribe to what the GMA has said. Let's keep on. You subscribe to what Kweku Agyeman-Mano, the health minister, has said. This is non-negotiable. You must get vaccinated. We have a vaccine mandate. Get vaccinated. That's it. I mean, you subscribe to that.
Yes, and I'll tell you why quickly. So far, 9.3 billion of these vaccines have been administered, which gives a vaccine per capita, if you look at the global population of 7.9 billion, of 1.2. With adverse drug reactions less than 4 in 1 million.
Right.
Anyone give me one drug that has this safety profile, and I'll have a decent conversation with them.
Well, the health experts are also calling on government to allow for the delivery of booster shots so long as the individuals are willing to take them. They believe the move will go a long way to aid the fight against the COVID pandemic.
And if you look at us who have gotten the 2 doses and still having breakthrough infection in Bono East, I can say that none of the health workers have come down with a severe or critical form of the disease.
Right.
As for Bono East, we are collating data as to who is being infected, health worker across. We can confidently say that none of the health workers have come down with severe or critical disease. Nevertheless, we still have the infection, and you see the disability that comes with the infection.
Right.
Therefore, we can make a point. And you know that we will also have to take care of other people who are maybe the pregnant women, the children. So we have a point in making that at least we should get the booster. But I think the leadership of the service and the Ministry of Health are thinking about as to the way forward in terms of the booster. But I think the data for us, we have that. I mean, there's the need for health workers to get booster. Not only that, the security officers and others, because of the nature of work that they do. Right. And mind you, if a health worker gets the infection, looking at the isolation days, if you have about, let's say, 30% or 40% of your workforce sick, and they are supposed to take some days off, you know what will happen, the long-term implications. So these are all the other things that you have to take into consideration in making a point for either people who have to get booster and others.
And we vaccinate for a number of reasons. Key amongst them is to stop mortality. That's the main thing. You don't want people to die. Then the next thing is to stop hospitalization, because if you can block hospitalization, then you don't go through severe disease, critical disease, and death. And if you can do that, then the next thing is to stop infection, and finally to stop transmission. Vaccines cannot do all these things at the same level of efficacy. So if you look at what Fred was saying, you'd realize that the global data is clear. Amongst doubly vaccinated people, risk of mortality is decreased by 97 to 98%.
Right.
Risk of hospitalization is decreased by 95%. Risk of infection is decreased by 67%. And that is where the bone of contention is coming from. I'll go to the boosters. The bone of contention is coming from many, and part of what you asked, Fred, was that those who've had 2 doses are the ones who are driving the infection. It's coming from the fact that why are people who are doubly vaccinated getting infected? The truth of the matter is that globally, if you look at all vaccines, and I'll make analogies here, one of the vaccines that has been widely used is the flu vaccine worldwide.
Right.
After the Spanish flu. Mm-hmm. The ability of that vaccine to prevent transmission is 40 to 45% in some years. But it has been in use, and we know how much it has benefited humankind from preventing mortality. Mm-hmm. So no one in the southern or western hemisphere gets a flu jab thinking, I am not going to get flu. They get it knowing that if you get flu, you would get it mildly, and your chances of hospitalization and therefore overrunning the health system is reduced, because a part of the whole thing is what Fred was talking about. You are preventing your health system from being overrun in 2 ways, with cases and from the health professional getting ill. That is why the flu vaccine is being used. So if the COVID vaccine has a comparative efficacy against prevention of infection as the flu vaccine, the question I ask myself is, on what basis are we even having the argument that the COVID vaccine should not be in use? Because in actual fact, it has a higher percentage compared with the flu vaccine. That is one thing. Then that brings me to the booster shot. You have a flu vaccine annually. And there are some people who are 80 years who've had a flu vaccine every single year. And that is what has kept them alive, because they've got chronic diseases. People have multiple bypasses. Why? Because you're dealing with a virus, and viruses mutate. So if you look at the flu vaccine, you may have trivalent, which is 3 strains in one vaccine, or quadrivalent, which is 4 strains in one vaccine. That brings me to the COVID vaccine. We are getting mutants. The advantage we've had is that the mutation of this virus has gone through a trajectory where the dominant mutant strain tends to technically wipe out all the other strains, which doesn't normally happen with the flu vaccines. And that's why you have 3 or 4 strains in there. But with the COVID vaccine, when that happens, what it means is that with like the Omicron, you have what we call immune escape, which then means that the previous vaccines that were developed using the previous known strains are not as effective, and therefore you have a booster. But when newer vaccines come on board, which are gleaned based on the strain of concern, which is the Omicron, you realize that the efficacy against preventing transmission and all that is also going to go up.
Now, back to that story we started talking about, and at least one person has been killed after a policeman drove into bystanders at Atiko Junction near Kanishi. The policeman who was driving a Toyota Vitz vehicle is said to have been pursuing an errant trotro driver when he tripped over a mound and veered onto the pavement, ramming into the people. Joy News is learning that the body of one of the victims, identified only as Abna, was completely decapitated. Manuel Kranting of our security desk has been on the ground following this gory story, and he now joins us live. Manuel, what exactly are you learning about this incident? Walk us through how exactly this took place.
So, Benjamin, I'll just start off by saying that the details of this particular incident are quite gory, and viewers would, accordingly, of course, advise regarding that. But essentially, what we've learned is that this police officer was driving a Toyota Vitz taxi vehicle. We're told that in the course of driving, there was an errant trotro driver that he was pursuing. Driving on top speed, there was a mound just around the Article Junction. After running over the mound, he skied off the road, drove into the pavement that separates the service lane from the main highway, knocked down one person on the pavement, and then knocked down a second person in the service lane, and then also veered off into the pavement on the outskirts of the road and ran into a lady who were told sells bags at Article Junction, was just sweeping to set up for the morning. The vehicle ran into her, crashing her into a tree. From what we were told and from pictures and videos that we have seen, her left leg was almost severed from her body, and other parts of her body decapitated also. And so essentially, the left side of her body, which received the impact of the vehicle, was close to being shredded. At that point, we're told by residents there that they feared that she had already died even before she was taken to the hospital. The other two people who were victims of this incident were told are receiving treatment. One is currently in a critical condition, and the other who sustained what is being referred to by our sources in the police command at Odoko MTTD as minor injury, is also responding to treatment. And so that's essentially what we've learned about this particular incident that we're reporting on.
That must have been some top speed that the police officer was riding at. But and I believe you've spoken to those who were around the area, eyewitnesses. What else did they have to share with you about what had ensued, resulted in this gory accident?
Also, Ben, from what they say, and in fact from what we have seen on the ground, this particular spot is prone to accidents. Essentially, there's a portion of the road which is in a terrible state. There are deep gullies and potholes on that stretch. And so for a lot of even the commercial vehicles, which are supposed to be using the service lane, they do not use that. They use the main highway because that portion of the road is totally deteriorated. And so they say that if that portion of the road had been fixed, for instance, a lot of the vehicles which ordinarily should not be running at top speed just because they are in the main highway would have used that part. But all of them are now forced to use the main highway, which now has made one of the lanes there also receiving a lot of pressure because all the vehicles are using that. And that's how come that mound is generating over there and, throwing off a lot of the vehicles that ply that route. So they have essentially been calling beyond the speed investigations that they want the police to embark on and serve justice in this particular matter. They want the road also to be fixed, refurbished, so that an incident of this nature does not recur.
Have you been able to interact with the police? What have they told you so far? And the police officer in question, where exactly is he now?
So, Ben, what our sources at the Odoko Divisional MTTD Command tell us is that this officer is with the Accra Region Police Command. He is a corporal, Of course, they will not divulge his exact name to us, but we're told that he is also in quite a state of shock and is currently receiving treatment. What we are told is that the Toyota Vitz vehicle, which is at the center of this particular incident, ran into a tree and also, had a degree of impact, which also affected the policeman who was driving it. And so he's also receiving treatment. We're told that investigations have been launched into the incident to unravel the remainder of the details and, of course, to assist them in prosecuting where necessary.
Manuel, thank you very much. My colleague Manuel Kranting from the Atiko Junction around Kaneshie. On to our next story. And a group calling itself Ashanti Patriot Movement is accusing leadership of the New Patriotic Party of selective justice in the application of a code of conduct issued by the National Executive Council for presidential and parliamentary primaries. Members say the code seems to be used in victimizing followers of one of the party's presidential hopefuls in the person of Alan Chamantain. They want the General Secretary of the party to apply the code equally or risk the unity existing within the party. Erastus Asaridonko was at a press conference held on the issue in Kumasi and now reports.
The National Council of the NPP in July last year issued a code of conduct for both presidential and parliamentary primaries. Under the code, grievances arising out of the conduct of persons within the party are to be laid before a National Complaints Committee, investigated and referred to the party's disciplinary committee for action. The Ashanti Patriot Movement says the suspension of 3 persons for allegedly supporting Alan Chamantain, whilst leadership keeps mute over similar offences committed by other party members, smacks of an abuse of the code. Emmanuel Osei is leader of the group.
However, as disappointing as it may sound, the 3 people, namely Abdul Rahman Dauda, Khalib and Mustafa, who have been punished by way of suspension for allegedly supporting Honorable Alan Chamantain, were never taken through the above stipulated procedures as issued by the party on July 27, 2021. To the astonishment of the party grassroots, ladies and gentlemen, Alhaji Mohammed Bantima Samba, Honorable Habib Idrisu, Honorable Farouk Mohammed, Honorable Amin Anta, and lawyer Nana Obri Boahin have, not forgetting Kwabena Sentre, have all breached the party's code of conduct with impunity. But the party's top hierarchy has kept mute, surprisingly. That we find so worrying and raising much suspicion going forward. Abundant evidence available gives a clear verdict that the party's application of the code of conduct issued by the national executives have proven beyond reasonable doubt to be selective and abusive.
The group is of the view these issues, if unchecked, will breed disunity.
The very issues raised by the grassroots that the party executives pretended not to have heard in 2020, leading to the current historic parliament, is the same thing some group of desperate power-seeking individuals have started. That will provoke anger, and when that happens, it will not augur well for the party, truth be told. The Ashanti MPP caucus should take a clue from the hanged parliament, because when they impose anybody on us, we shall reject the person through democratic means, supervised by the Electoral Commission of Ghana come December 2024.
They had a message for the General Secretary of the NPP, John Boadu.
On that note, we are challenging the General Secretary, who happens to be the administrator of the party, to set up and apply the code of conduct to anyone on equal grounds, because most of the breaches occurred right in front of him. In any way that may be, Mr. John Boadu thinks that he is tired in executing his duties. That we believe is the case. We will welcome and celebrate his resignation letter when he tenders it in.
Reporting for Joy News, Erastus Asaridonko, Kumasi.
Well, from the Ashanti region, let's head to the central region now. And some concerned members of the NPP, supporters in the region, are calling for an end to what they call the animal farm style of leadership exhibited by the national and regional executives of the party. According to the NPP supporters, several national and regional executives who have openly declared their support for the Vice President, Dr. Mahamudu Bawumia, his bid to be flag bearer of the party against the party's rules and regulations, have all gone unpunished. At a news conference in Cape Coast, spokesperson of the supporters and former DCE for Trifo, Atimokwa Samuel Yao Ajebi Kesi, lamented how some supporters of Alan Tremantain are quickly hounded and intimidated in the party. The supporters are calling for the cessation of the selective application of the party's rules in order for the party to break the 8.
Since the release of the rules and regulations, a number of high-profile and ranking members of the party have openly violated the rules and regulations by declaring their support for the Vice President, His Excellency Dr. Alhaji Mahmoud Bawumia, who has left nobody in doubt of his ambition to become the party's presidential candidate. Prominent among these party officials who have blatantly violated the party's rules and regulations are as follows. Deputy General Secretary of the party, Nana Obiri-Bwahin, the Northern Regional Executives led by Chairman Samba, the Vice Chairman of Ashanti, Mr. Kobna Senchire, the Member of Parliament for Karaga, my own friend and former colleague, Amin Anta, and then Member of Parliament for Toron, Honorable Habib Idrisu, and Farouk Mahama, MP for Yendi, among others. Interestingly, even though the actions of the above-mentioned officials and senior members clearly violate the party's code of conduct, none of these blatant violators has been called to order by the national executives of the party. The worst of it all, at the recent National Delegate Conference of the party, which was held in Kumasi, no less a person than the Vice President himself, Alhaji Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia, who was part of the very body that promulgated the party's rules and regulations, in wanton disregard of the same rules and regulations, arrived at the conference ground with supporters wearing his branded T-shirts and banners announcing his campaign for the flag bearership. As if breaching the code of conduct wasn't embarrassing, the Vice President and his cohort, in their desperation, went on as far as breaching the state protocols as he and his followers arrived late to the function, well after His Excellency, the President, Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, and the First Lady had taken their seats. In spite of all this embarrassing conduct, nobody in the National Executive, including Mr. John Bodu, the General Secretary, who announced the sanctions, has come out to condemn it or say anything about it. However, in an animal farm selective justice faction, when supporters of other aspirants, particularly Honorable Alan John Kojo Tremantain, a founding member of the party, tried to stand their ground and protect their own, they are either immediately rounded up by security agencies or subjected to acts of intimidation and senseless suspension. A clear case in point is the arrest and detention of some supporters of Honorable Alan Tremantain, the Minister for Trade and Industry, and a leading contender to the flag bearership at the just-ended National Delegate Conference for protesting the flagrant abuse of the party's regulations. Things are really falling apart in NPP of today. Our fear, ladies and gentlemen, is that if current situation is not arrested and every member of the party made to feel an equal member with equal opportunities, the party will face an ignominious defeat in 2004 with grave consequence into the future. We want to use this medium to appeal to His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, His Excellency J. Kufuor, the former president, and other leading personalities, including Mr. Kojo Piening, Osafumafo.
Let's move on now to our next story. And Yarugun Crocodile Pond in the Binduri district in the Upper East region is drying up. The town's sacred pond, known to accommodate a number of crocodiles, has not received any major attention from the district assembly, despite its touristic potential. Residents want measures put in place to help transform the pond into a tourist site to generate revenue. Mahmoud Mohammed Nuruddin was there and filed this report.
This pond has been here for many years. Residents say it is as old as the community. It is difficult to count the number of crocodiles here.
My name is Reverend Elisha Osman Agbang. I'm from Zosi Jianku. Akolwok Pond is a pond that contains a whole lot of crocodiles. As you can see, there is one lying over there.
Known as Akolwok, it is one of the few crocodile ponds in the Upper East region, but little or no attention has been paid to the pond. Reverend Elisha Osman Agwang Alombila Dawini and Imoro Zakari Akogri have all witnessed and monitored the activities of the crocodiles over the past 3 decades.
We used to swim here when we were young, till now. They don't leave, they don't go to any place, they used to stay in the water.
The issue is that if you come here and you are putting, let me say, is it a frog or a toad inside, you see that a number of them will come on top of the water. So you see that they will run, more than 10 or 15 will run and come out, so that they will be rustling. So from there I will get to know that there are so many inside in the water.
But in recent times, the level of water in the pond is gradually decreasing. Residents attribute the drying up to farming activities along the pond, among others.
And these days, the water is decreasing. So we don't know why the water is decreasing. We need to come out. Like farming along the riverside made the water to be so shallow, not deep again like we used to know in the first time. So we are calling upon help. Whichever or whomever who heard of this should support us so that this place can change into a tourist center.
Here is Chief of Yarugun Naba Alombila Alal Kuduk. The pond is at the verge of death. It was expanded several years ago. I think those who farm near the pond are destroying it. The crocodiles used to come out for fresh air, but because of the farmers, they don't come out anymore.
Let's focus on the country's water resources now. And the Ghana Water Company Limited is attributing the recent erratic supply of water to homes to the onset of the dry season. In a statement issued to the general public, the company, however, assures of being on top of the challenge and fixing it. It is thus encouraging the public to adopt various measures to save water so they do not run out entirely. Director of Communications at the Ghana Water Company, Stanley Mate, told Joy News the company has resorted to water demand management to ensure equitable distribution of the little water currently being produced at the various treatment plants.
We expect everybody to be part of the solution, such that we all have roles to play. All have roles to play in the usage of the water in the system. We all have a role to play in stopping the persistent pollution of our river bodies. And now, currently around this season, that is the core of the issue, such that because of the pollution of the river bodies, we are unable to abstract enough.
Right.
Okay. Now, if we do not stop the pollution, okay, some of our rivers will go extinct.
and then in the near future, we may not even have the water to abstract to treat at all. And we have had this experience before in times past. I just pray that it doesn't happen. It doesn't happen again. So all have to get up our loins. We all have to get on board in the education of the general public, so that we stop the pollution of our riverways. Because around the dry season is the main challenge that we face. We are unable to abstract water from one of our treatment plants, that is the Dabwase treatment plant. So we have had to resort to another treatment plant at Busumase, so that we could abstract very little to treat and pump to secondary credit, because that treatment plant serves secondary and credit. So if we can't abstract water from the Dabwase and we have to resort to our booster station or our treatment plant at Busumase, then it's a very serious problem.
Well, we take a break now. When we return, we'll bring you business.
Hi there, welcome to Business. My name is Darryl Kwao. Prices of petroleum products are expected to go up beginning this weekend. This is based on the new price list of the bulk distribution companies for the next 2 weeks, cited by Joy Business. George Afe has more.
The data showed that a litre of diesel should be going up by 4.78%, while a litre of petrol should be increased by 5.21%. This should translate into 32 pesos increase for diesel. When it comes to petrol, we should be doing about 35 pesos per litre. This is the price that the bulk oil distribution companies are willing to sell to the oil marketing companies from this Sunday, January 16. This should mean that these retail companies may have little choice than to pass it on to consumers from next Monday, as some have argued that looking at the current challenges facing them, it might be difficult to absorb the expected adjustment going forward. The increase has been influenced by rising prices of crude oil on the international market due to the fact that these traders think that the Omicron variant may no longer pose a major threat to demand for their product as more economies are now opening up. Well, at the end of the day, many will be looking forward to see what the three major oil marketing firms, that is Shell, Total and Go, will be doing when it comes to their margin of increase, a move that would influence the over 100 oil marketing companies in the country when it comes to their pricing. But some have argued that since the Ghana cedi is still depreciating against the US dollar, and crude oil expected to increase further in the coming days, well, consumers may have to brace themselves for more hikes in the coming weeks.
The World Bank is forecasting a 5.5% expansion of Ghana's economy this year. That's according to its January 2022 Global Economic Prospects Report. The projected growth rate is lower than the International Monetary Fund's projection of 6.2%. It is, however, higher than Sub-Saharan Africa's average of 3.6%. Charles Nixon-Yeboah takes us through the report.
Ghana will certainly become one of the fastest growing economies in Sub-Saharan Africa based on the forecast by the World Bank. The report said elevated commodity prices are projected to both support recovery in extractive sectors and boost export and fiscal revenues. This will help ease some pandemic-induced fiscal pressures and external financing needs. It, however, pointed out that many Sub-Saharan Africa countries, including Ghana and Rwanda, witnessed a marked deterioration in fiscal balances because of deployed relief measures, depleting already narrow fiscal space. This, together with constraints on financing and pressures to improve debt sustainability, will lead to a much less supportive fiscal stance across the region over the forecast horizon. The World Bank also forecast a growth rate of 5% for Ghana in 2023, but maintained the 4.1% rate for last year. The economy expanded by 6.6% in the third quarter of 2021. Education, health and social works, information and communication, as well as hotel and restaurants drove the growth rate.
Now, as government works to deal with the unemployment situation, it is devoting this year to building entrepreneurs. One of the things if you're considering entrepreneurship that would make your business stand out is branding, because impressions count. While CEO of African Network of Entrepreneurs, Eko Mensah, shares some tips.
Be some form of a definition of what you stand for and what value you provide. Business is all about providing a certain value, a certain solution to a problem or a need, to people that need it on a consistent basis at a cost or a rate that they can afford. Basically, that's what business is. So there's a need, there's a problem, and then you have a solution. It doesn't even have to be new, but the solution provides them the value that they are looking for at a price that they can afford. Mm-hmm. Now, how do people get to know about this solution you have? And how do they know that the problem or the need they have, your solution can address that? And that's where branding comes from. You have to be able to be intentional about letting people know what your offering is. And that comes with some level of consistency across all the platforms that you have. Especially as a startup, when you don't have the necessary investment and money to do all those brand promotions and billboards and all those things. It's important for you to start with consistency so that there's no ambiguity, because ambiguity is expensive, where you have to literally explain and have press releases and press conferences and all those things that enable people to know that, listen, you're an oil company and you don't sell juice, because people are confused. When you're a startup, you don't have room for ambiguity. You need to be so clear that this is what you offer.
And the conversation continues on Joy Business Social. Tonight, we are discussing mentoring and networking with the CEO of Premium Africa Holdings, Farouk Highland. It's going to be an interesting conversation across our platforms at 6 p.m. Don't miss it. And that's business. Sports is coming up next.
Good afternoon, welcome to Showbiz here on Joy News Today. Now, High Life legend Kojo Entry, by way of showing appreciation to fans across the globe, has revealed he's a disciple maker. According to him, he's had people who has been with him for over 30 years, and this means a lot to him.
And this means so much for people to stick with you for 30 years. I found someone who's been with me for 30 years, never missed one. I mean, there's nothing an artist can ask for.
What do you think keeps them coming?
Probably maybe next year you'll be coming. Maybe what is...
Well, that is true. I'm definitely booking I'm coming.
You're a disciple now.
Yes, I am a disciple.
I win disciples, right, and they stick with me for life. They are not just for moments, or they are not just for albums, or they are not just for trending. These are people who truly love my music, and I don't have the explanation or words to describe how it makes me feel, you know. So I just thank God and I thank them. I keep saying there's nothing fulfilling like playing for people. You can feel their love. You can almost touch love in the air. How can you stop playing? For me, it's more spiritual, healing. It's everything for me.
On that note, we end Showbiz here on Joy News Today. My name is Becky. Over to you.
Well, and that is how we actually draw the curtains on Joy News today. You can go to myjoyonline.com for more stories. My name is Benjamin Akapo. Do have a good afternoon.